Welcome to the Great Business Skills Show here on IntellectualRadio.com and iHeart Station. I'm your host, Dr. Anthony L. Gantt, here for another show on our business skills show here. Again, we are an iHeart Station, and anywhere you get your podcast, you can reach us. You can hear any of our shows. We have shows here Sunday through Saturday, mornings, afternoons, and evenings. A lot of great shows, a lot of great hosts. We have political shows, comedy shows, relationship shows, entertainment shows, all type of shows, educational shows, spiritual shows. So you name it, we have it here, and you have some great hosts. So you might want to click on, if you're on YouTube, IntellectualRadio.com on YouTube, then you can also hit the subscribe button there, and then when you and also hit the bell so you can be notified of all the shows we have when they actually come on air. So before I get started, let me promote someone like I do. If you want to get promoted on one of my shows here, you can get in contact with me at fullerpurposemedia@gmail.com, and I will definitely get my information over to you, and then we can discuss it more. If you're into helping people, to some degree to get better, then you're 50% there with me. So let's the person I'm going to promote today is Mr. Emmett Farmer. Are you 65 and older or know someone who is in need of Medicare assistance? Mr. Emmett Farmer is a licensed life and health insurance producer and an independent insurance broker. He can be reached at 773-908-9425 or efarmer2, the number 2, efarmer2@ameritech.net. Mr. Emmett Farmer specializes in Medicare plans for seniors 65 and older. Also, if you are disabled and have Medicare, he can help you as well. He is licensed in the state of Illinois, Texas, Kentucky, and Indiana, and also been in the process of being licensed in other states as well. If you are 65 and older, or if you will become 65 within the next 6 to 12 months, you can contact Mr. Emmett Farmer to learn more about your available options. Again, for more information, contact Mr. Emmett Farmer at 773-908-9425. That's 773-908-9425, or efarmer2, EFARMER, the number 2, efarmer2@ameritech.net. You also get a free consultation by mentioning that you heard about Mr. Emmett Farmer and his business here on the Great Business Skills Show here on IntellectualRadio.com and iHeart Station with the host here, Dr. Anthony L. Gantt. So, again, if you'd like to be promoted on the show, get in contact with me and we can make sure that can happen for you. So, we are, for those who are new to me or IntellectualRadio.com, this is a business skills show. So, it's like a business coaching session, a business class, a business book club, kind of all wrapped into one thing, right? So we are in a series called How to Speak Better in Public, and this is part 5. So this is the last part of this particular series that we do. And again, for those who may be new to me, what we do a different series, and based off a book that I've written on that particular topic, and we go through that series until we to maybe 4 or 5 sessions of that series before we move on to another series. So here we are in this series, and I always do a recap so to help you catch up to what we're doing. And just to reiterate, all of our shows here at IntellectualRadio.com are recorded, so you can go listen to the shows anytime you like, whenever you like. You can go to IntellectualRadio.com. If you know the show, like my show, for instance, is Great Business Skills Show, and my other show is a Greater You Show. You can just type that in when you get to IntellectualRadio.com, and then those shows will pop up. If you know the hosts of any of the shows, you can type their name in, and their shows will come up. So the shows are here for, for a long time, right? There's on the internet, and obviously IntellectualRadio.com. We got shows not just last week, but last month, last year, 5 years ago, 8 years ago. So got a plethora of shows that you can go back and look at, and got a lot of great shows present and also done in the past. So let me do a recap. Session 1 we started with lesson 1 from the book, All Eyes on Me, Public Speaking Made Simple. And we talked about how it's okay to be yourself and what glossophobia is. The fear of public speaking is actually the term called glossophobia. And it's like a Greek term. And glosso means tongue or speaking to a certain degree. And then phobia means fear or dread. So what it means, a glossophobia does not mean that you're afraid to talk. What it means is that you're afraid to talk with all eyes on you, meaning in public, speaking in public to people. So in order to cure some of the things of glossophobia, you need to know some things, how to cure it. Some people use medication. However, you don't have to go that far if that's not something you choose to do. You just need to know how to actually do a few things to help you get past glossophobia. And we talked about how it's important that you be yourself when you're up and speaking in front of people. Yeah, you're going to be nervous, and nervousness just says that you want to do a good job when you speak in front of people, and that should be a concern of yours and a desire that you want. You should want to do a good job whenever you speak to people in a public setting. And that's all that means. So it's not like people are going to beat you up because they see you speaking to you. They all want you to really do well, want you to win, want you to give good information. So you need to know that before you go up there. But they also need you to be yourself and not try to be someone else. Section 2, we talked about, we came from lesson 5 in the book, and we talked pretty much on why are you there. And you're there in front of people. When you're speaking to them, you're there to actually deliver a message. You are a delivery person. Your job is to deliver a message to the people that's in the audience. And you must realize that you are a messenger, and the message that you have is bigger than the messenger that you are. Don't ever think that you're bigger than the message, because what happened, you'll put yourself in the way of a message that can do some big things for people and help them get out of a mess. But because you're in the way, then the message seems very small. So you must realize that the message is bigger and more important than you. You are important as a person, of course. However, you're there to deliver a message like a delivery person. So we kind of expounded on that and how not to waste the time of people that's in the audience. Session 3, we came from lesson 10, and we talked about things involved with the 3 elements of speaking in regards to, you have like a spotlight, and whoever gets the most attention, the spotlight is on them. And you as a speaker, you don't want the spotlight on you. You want the spotlight on the topic and the audience. So those are 3 elements: the topic or the subject matter, the audience, and you. And so you want to make sure the spotlight is not on you. You want to make sure the spotlight is on the topic, subject matter, or content, and you want to make sure that it's also on the audience. You want to make sure that you merge those 2 together, because that's what it's all about while you're speaking. Session 4, we came from the fact of how to turn something, a bad topic, into something good. And we talked about, when you're helping people get out of a mess, it's not always pretty. And so you have to try to turn bad things into something good, and how you have to say things different ways in order for you to make make a positive impact on the lives of people that hear you and sitting there in front of you and looking at you, whether it's virtually or if they're doing something live in the same space or auditorium. Then you have to be positive too. So you have to actually share some positive information in order to make a positive impact on the lives of people that hear you. So that's enough of the recap there. So really our main focus when we speak in front of people, we got a couple of main focus, but one of our main focus is that we want to actually make a positive impact in the lives of people that hear us. And we want to also become an effective speaker at the same time. And we talked about, that, you're doing the 3 I's. You're going to inform people, you want to inspire people, and you want to invite them to actually take, advantage or take the steps necessary that you actually share with them. So informing is hitting the intellect. Inspiring is hitting the emotions. You want to do both of them in order to help people to be persuaded to do something better, good for them, not doing something for you. So when you're helping people get out of a mess that they're in, then you're trying to help them get out of a mess that they're in by informing them and also inspiring them to do so. So this session, we're going to talk about using proper use of different elements. For instance, when you have food and you're cooking food, and regardless of what you're cooking, you might be cooking chicken, vegetables, whatever you're cooking, right? One thing that you try to add to food, for those of us that like to eat, like myself, and those of us like to cook, right? We have to add seasoning to food, because if you don't add seasoning to food, food is pretty bland. I don't care how good you cook it. If it don't have any seasoning, it don't really taste that good because it's pretty bland. So the purpose of seasoning on the food is to add some flavor to the food, right? So, ooh, that tastes good. Whether you put herbs or spices or, salt, pepper, whatever you put on the food, it adds some flavoring to the food. It brings out the natural flavor of the food and also adds some flavor to the food. So it enhances the food and the flavor and the taste. So the reason why I said that, this is one reason, I kind of alluded to this last week or last session that we did, that this is why stories and examples and metaphors and all these things are so beneficial, because those things are like seasoning is to food. You can just have a speech and just say, this is the speech and everything, and people are like, oh, that's kind of bland. right? Like, yeah, that's kind of bland, has no flavor, has no taste. So the purpose of using stories and using examples is to add a little seasoning to it, right? So it can just kind of enhance the story. But remember, the purpose of using stories and examples and all those different things is to point people to the main point. The main point is that you want to be, like I just used an example of food, right? Now, I use this example to let you know that the main point is to enhance the flavor of the food, to enhance the flavor of your message, add something to your message that brings out the main point to help someone get through their mess, right? So here's something else that we use a lot in speaking, that we use visual aids. And the purpose of visual aids is to assist you in doing what you're doing. The purpose of a visual aid is not to replace you, it's to assist you. So now let's look at that a little bit further, right? There are many different visual aids. Now, I'm not going to talk about a whole lot of them here, just maybe about 3 different ways, and you can kind of put things on these categories. But a lot of times, people, when they're afraid to speak, they would try to use the visual aid to replace them as the speaker. The visual aid cannot do what you do as the speaker. The visual aid, just like the message is bigger than you, you're bigger than the visual aid. Okay. The visual aid is there to aid you, not to replace you. It can't do what you can do, right? It's just there to help add to your message. It's there to add some seasoning to your message. It's there to add some taste, some flavor to your message, right? That's what the purpose of a visual aid is. Now, obviously, when you use a story, you use an example, a metaphor, a parable, things of that nature. Those are visual aids too, mental visual aids. So I'm not going to talk about, that's not what I'm referring to when I say visual aids. Here, visual aids like something that you can physically see. Like, for instance, I'm using a visual aid now while having the book here placed in front of you. This is a visual aid. The book is a visual aid, right? Technology is a visual aid. People are visual aids. So let's look at the 3 visual aids that I'm going to kind of discuss today. Now, I do it for myself to remind me, and I put in an acronym for myself to kind of remind me of what I'm doing for myself. And this is something I've done for years. So I call it TMP, right? That's for me. And you can use it too, obviously, to help you. T is for technology, M is for materials, and P is for people. Now, these are visual aids. Now, you can place pretty much everything under one of these 3 visual aids if you choose. So let's kind of break them down just a little so we can kind of understand, again, what they mean. So, for instance, technology. A lot of times people like to use technology when they actually doing some type of speaking and everything. And technology is good, but what ends up happening, if you really want to see someone run from speaking in public, see how they use technology. Because now they have this technology out there, and they're trying to actually have the technology replace them as the speaker. Again, the technology is an aid. It's to aid you to make your point better. So when you use technology, one thing you want to need to make sure of, if you're going to use some type of technology, you need to make sure this stuff works before you get up there in front of people talking, right? And if stuff doesn't work, now you need to practice with this stuff. Now, for instance, if you're not a tech whiz and things of that nature, you better practice a lot to make sure this stuff works, right? Make sure the screen is where it is and all this stuff. The last thing you want to do is stand in front of people trying it out, right? You're like, hey, man, you trying to figure it out. You trying to find out how to plug stuff up and hit stuff and hit buttons and all this stuff, and you don't know what you're doing, right? So you need to make sure that you know what you're doing with technology if you're going to use it. Now, if you're going to use technology, keep in mind the main point of your message is to help me get out of a mess, right? The main point of your message is the main point of the message. You don't need anything to overshadow, I should say, the main point of the message. So here's something for you. Just like I said that we don't need you up there interviewing yourself when you're speaking to people. I remember when I was 5 years old and I was 10 years old and I was 15 years old and I remember this and I did this. And then you use the whole 45 minutes talking about you. And then people walk out of there, only thing they know is about you, right? Now they still in the mess that they're in. They still haven't gotten out the mess. They don't know any way to get out of the mess. You haven't informed them or anything like that, right? So you don't want to make it an interview. Well, same thing with technology. I don't need to walk out of this thing after 30 minutes, 45 minutes, an hour, or whatever it may be, and walk out of here. And the only thing I said, man, the technology, how they have to woo, and that's the only thing I remember is about the technology, how the blue went with the red and the red thing went over and the guy bounced on the screen and all this stuff. If that's all I remember and I don't remember the points to the message, then that means the technology that I use has gotten in the way of my big point, meaning that my big point has shrunk or my big message has gotten smaller. So again, that's why you need to make sure that you look at technology as an aid. It's to aid me to actually make my point clearer or better to the audience. The better I get at that, then the better I'm using technology. Now, some people want to wow you with technology. Now, based on where you are and who you're speaking with when you use technology, many times when we use technology, and I'm just using this as far as uh, people that speak English and things of that nature. And here's what I say. Nothing against other languages, but here's something that you want to realize. We read a book or a newspaper or anything, we read it left to right, right? You start on the left side, go right. Well, when you're standing in front of people speaking to them, you should probably always be on their left, because if they're looking at you, then look at the screen. You don't really want to be on their right, because we're used to looking at something from left to right when we read. Well, if you're on their right, they have to look at you, then go back and try to read the stuff on the screen. So you probably want to stand on their left, on that side of the screen or whatever you're doing, because when they look at you, then they look back at the screen and reading the screen, then look at you. So it's almost like a natural occurrence that's happening with them, right? So you don't want them looking way over there, then have to look at the screen, look back over there. That don't go right with how they reading, right? So you want to make it easy on them, because the main point is to get in the main point. Now, something else you don't want to do, you don't want to just read everything you have on the screen, right? You just reading. What do I need you there for if you're just going to read everything on the screen? I can do that myself. I don't need you for that, right? I need you to speak to me. Now, you can have something on the screen and have your bullets or points and all these things on there, and you can have different things that trigger things for you to actually say something good, right? So you can do those things, but don't sit up there and you turn and looking at the screen and you reading everything on the screen to me. Well, I don't need you to read everything on the screen to me, right? I can read that myself. I need you to speak to me, not read to me, right? I'm not there for you to read to me. I'm there for you to speak to me. So you must understand that with the screen. So don't hide behind the technology in that case. Now, something else are materials, right? And sometimes based on the size of your audience, they may have materials. It could be a book. It could be some type of handouts that they have, right? It could be some things that they have that they can actually touch, right? It could be the workbook. It can be any of those things. Well, if they're actually touching it, the same things still apply, right? You don't want to just sit there and read page one. Could you imagine me here sharing this information with you and I'm open up the book and all I'm doing is looking down at my book and I'm just reading everything in the book? You say, man, what I need you there for? You just sitting there reading to me. I'm not asking you to read to me. What same thing applies to that? You may say, turn to page 55, and I'm gonna read the first paragraph out of page 55, and you might read that, and you may close the book up, and then you might start talking about something else and elaborating more extensively on it, because I can see how effective you are based on how you elaborate on what you know. That's why we said in session 3, talk your know what you're talking about. Now, here's something. Let me just kind of go back just a little with technology. This is why you have to know your stuff. Because sometimes you can use technology, you did everything right, you practiced on it and everything, you got it all in order, and something may happen in the building, the power went out, or something happened that, this thing was working just fine before, everybody showed up. Now it's not working well. And now you don't know where to go. You can't speak on anything because you need all your slides on the screen, right? You need all the fancy stuff on the screen in order for you to talk about the situation. Well, this is if you know your stuff, even if something happened, remember, these are aids. Technology is an aid. Materials are aids. You should be able to talk about the information that you're there to speak on without that technology and without that aid, without that visual aid. The visual aid is just to add a little flavor. It doesn't mean that you can't actually still speak on that topic or you don't have content already developed for that particular audience. So those are things you want to remember. Now, we're going with materials. You might use a book, right? You might use your own book. You might use the book of someone else's, right? So you want to tell people where you are. And I'm on page 5. I'm on page 29, right? Whatever it may be. So a lot of times people take notes, right? And they may say, I'm going to go look at that later on page 29, or I look at sheet number 5 later. Well, based again on how large your audience is, this has something to do with it too, right? So that's something else. Now, technology, materials, and then the last one, people. Now, people can be used as examples and things of that nature when you speak in front of people, right? They're visual aids too. Now, if you're going to use people as a visual aid, it's always a good idea to ask them, is it okay if I use you as a visual aid? Now, if you can do this before you actually going to speak to people, you can say, hey, is it okay if I use you as a visual aid in my presentation? And then, person say yes. Now, your job is not to embarrass people when you use them as a visual aid, right? And secondly, if you are going to use people as a visual aid or their stories as a visual aid, ask them permission. Can you use that in front of people, right? You don't want to say, hey, look at this guy over here, man. This guy just no good. He ain't no good and everything. Come on up here, man. Let me use you as a see, this guy's no good. He's been no good all his life. But see, you can be better than him, right? No, you don't do that to anybody. You don't want to embarrass anybody. This guy don't even know he's coming up there, and you're going to embarrass him in front of an audience. No, 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 no. So you want to ask the person, can I use you as a visual aid? Now, usually when you want to use people as a visual aid, again, we want to make a positive impact in the lives of people, right? You want to use it in a positive manner, right? Just say, for instance, you want to say, you want the person to hold up a book and you want the other person to hold up a book. I'll give you an example. One time I was doing a session and I was talking about how to get on the same page. And I was doing this team session with this group. And sometimes we say, hey, you know what? Everybody get on the same page. Everybody get on the same page. So as part of my visual aid, I gave one person one of my books and I gave another person a different book that I had written. And I told, asked each person to go to page 55 in the book that they had. Well, I asked one person to read what you had on page 55 and they read the first paragraph on page 55. And I asked the other person to read what you have in that book on page 55. Well, obviously they were different books and they said different things on page 55, right? Well, the point that I was making is that as a team, not only do you have to get on the same page, you need to make sure you're also in the same book, because both of those people were right. They both were on page 55. They both read the first paragraph on page 55. But how come what they were saying was totally different? So when I used the people, I asked them, is it okay if I use you and you read this? And okay, if you use that. So they both use it and I use a material that I had and I used the people in the audience. Because my point was make sure you're in the same book and on the same page. That was the point that I was making as far as being on the team. Well, when you do things like that, you had to ask people, and I wanted to put them both in a positive light because the thing I was making a point of, both people were right. Neither one of them were wrong because they did exactly what they instructed. Read page 55, right? So neither one was wrong. They just weren't in the same book. Well, when you use people as an example to make a positive impact, you're trying to make sure that you use them in a positive way, not a negative way. Yeah, this guy cheated on his wife 13 times. Hey, man, come on up here, man. Let's talk to this guy. Like, man, whoa. You didn't give me no warning. You don't talk to me. Like, women don't find a guy like this because this guy cheated on his wife 13 times. Like, no, man, wait. Right? That's not what you want to do. You want to make sure that you try to put it in a positive light when you use these things. So you're using people in that facet. Don't ever try to put people in a negative space, because even if you use them as an example in a negative spot, people in the audience see that you did something negative to that person, and then they don't feel good either, right? So then since they don't feel good, they miss your whole point that you were trying to make because they feel bad about what you did to that person out there in front of people, right? So you always want to actually try to, when you use people as an example, use them as an example or trying to use them as far as the story, you're always trying to do your things to help those people in a positive way. It's all about positivity and helping people get out of a mess, right? It's all about that all the time. If it's not about that, then obviously you don't want to actually have it. Now, when you use examples, like I gave you that example with the two people reading out the book, I knew I was going to do that. I've done it before. And, you knew what you was going to practice. I knew it was on page 55, right? I knew page 55 wasn't blank in one book and then had words in another book, right? I knew that already. So I had already had that prep. So I knew, that's why I told them page 55, because I knew exactly what was on page 55 in both books. Well, same thing with you. Make sure that you know exactly where you're going. And then after they read page 55, I went back on and started reading, reiterating my point of being on the team and everybody doing the things on the team and all these team building techniques and exercises I was sharing with them. Well, same thing you're going to have to do. So those are three things that you want to do: technology, materials, and people. Those are three elements that you can use to help you with something that you're trying to actually do when it comes to using that as those people as examples. Because examples and parables, parables, P-A-R-A, para means near and ball means to throw. So really, when you're using a parable, you're throwing this concept near this concept so it can make sense, right? So those are the things that you're doing when you're adding the seasoning to what you have going on. Now, here's something for you, right? Based on how much time you have to speak, You can't try to use every parable you can think of, every story you can think of, every example you can think of, every person in the audience. You can't use all that, right? Because you may not have enough time, right? So you want to actually base it on, for instance, if you have more time to talk and based on the size of your audience, and you're trying to use 10 people in it as an example, well, based on how much movement you have going on, this is taken from your time, right? All right, all 25 of y'all, and all 13 of y'all, that's a lot of movement going on. So you want to be careful with that, because you don't want everybody to come from this side, going over that side and all that, because you may not have that much time to actually share what you have to share, right? So you want to be conscious and aware of those type of things too. Now, here's something too for you, because we all have a stage presence. You have one, I have one. We all have a stage presence, right? And a stage presence doesn't mean that one is better than the other. We all have one. So obviously, when people are looking at you, when all eyes are on you, everybody's looking at you, right? So your stage presence has a lot to do with how you present the information, but it also has a lot to do with how people perceive what you're saying, right? Because remember, it's all about the audience, right? It's all about the audience, and it's all about the content. So your presence on stage has a lot to do with how well I'm going to perceive what you're saying. Now, not only are we speaking, like right now I'm talking, right? And not only are we speaking in front of people when we speak, on stage or a virtual thing, but we also have another language going on, which is called body language. And your body language is saying a whole lot more than what you think it's saying, right? This is one reason why I share with you, and I say that every session, be yourself. Because if you're yourself, your body language would speak to things like, if you know what you're talking about, like if you don't know what you're talking about, your body language would say, I don't know what I'm talking about, right? But you may think you know what you're talking about and think you're looking okay, but people looking at you like, you know how those puppy dogs look and they turn their head to the side? That's how people be looking at you, because you look like you don't know what you're talking about, right? So, but if you know what you're talking about, your body language would speak, I know that as well, right? So your body language is speaking more than your words, more than your tonality. It's really well over, according to a lot of surveys and things like that, it's well over most of the actually things that's going on in that scenario. So how comfortable you are at being you, how you speaking on things that you like, how positive you being, talking on what you know, what your information may happen to be, how well you do those things, then it will show in your body language. Now, here's the thing you want to realize. When you're not very sure of what you're talking about, this is when a lot of people try to manufacture excitement. What do I mean by manufacture excitement? Because they're not that confident in what they say, they don't feel they're that competent in what they say, they don't know what they're talking about. A lot of times their body language is speaking it. This is when folks want to have you jumping up and down, doing cartwheels and flips and everything, high five 10 people over there, point to 3 people over there, and you're doing this for like hours, man. Like, man, we've been doing this for 15 minutes, man. It's like an exercise routine, right? Because what happened now, they're trying to manufacture excitement. Now, this is not everybody, but there's a lot of people, right? They're trying to manufacture this emotional, getting you emotionally aroused, right? So you get all excited because they don't have a lot to say, right? They don't have a lot to tell you. They don't have a lot to inform you. So if they can just get you excited enough, jumping up and down enough, yelling and screaming enough, doing flips enough, you might be too tired to realize they didn't say anything, right? So this is one reason that when you're being effective and you looking at people that's in the audience, I didn't come there to do a flip, right? But I also didn't come there to be bored either by you just lecturing to me, right? So you have to actually add these things to what you're doing so that you won't waste my time with what you're saying. So if you don't know what you're talking about, this is why I stated several times, talk on the stuff you know. If you don't know it, don't talk about it. That doesn't make you less of a person. It doesn't mean that you're a bad person. It just means you don't know anything like that. For instance, I don't know a lot of things about, I drive cars and everything and had cars for a long time, but I don't go and do any work on cars. Now, I really didn't take the time to try to learn how to work on cars really either, because I wasn't that interested, right? Now, I had problems with cars, and I do a few things on them because I had a problem with that, right? But I'm not trying to actually tell you why the fuel pump does it. I don't know all that. And I'm not really interested in all that, right? I take it have somebody else do that for me, right? Now, That doesn't mean I'm a bad person because I don't know a whole lot about, the mechanical instruments on all the cars and the electric, this box and that and all these different. Just because I don't know all those things don't mean that I'm a bad person. So you know what? I don't go out there trying to talk about the mechanics of a car and say, this is how you replace an engine. Yeah. This is how you make sure the transmission working and you do this and all this, take the transmission out, rebuild it and put it back. I don't do all that, right? I don't talk on those things because I don't know those things. Well, same thing when you're speaking in public, right? Now I may use a car as an example, like, hey, when you put your foot on the gas, the car moves faster, right? You press down hard on the gas, it moves faster. That's an example I can use, but after that, I'm done with the car, right? I can't tell you much more about the car because I don't know much about it. Well, same thing with you. You have to talk on what you know. Just because you have the opportunity to speak and someone invites you to speak, don't mean that you need to take every offer that comes along. Because sometimes you may take an offer that you don't fit in. You don't fit in everything. Again, they may have you coming there talking about cars. You don't know anything about cars. Talk on what you know so you can sound like you know what you're talking about. This will help you put you in a situation where you can use your examples better. You can use stories better, all these different things. Now, let's go back to seasoning for a minute, like I stated earlier. And when should you use a story? When's the best time to use a story? The best time to use a story is anytime you want to use it. Some people use a story and they call it like an icebreaker, right? Because I don't know the audience and everything. And maybe I'm going to use this funny story and say, hey, the cow jumped over the moon. And I know every time I use that story, everybody started laughing, right? So warm everybody up. Like, that's why they call it icebreaker. It's to break the ice, right? I talked about this cow jumped over the moon. And when he jumped over the moon, gave him a big kiss. Everybody just fall out laughing, right? Right. So it breaks the ice. So you can use a story then, right? You might want to use a story at the end. And it's okay too if you use the story at the end. But hopefully you're using the story at the end, again, seasoning, to help emphasize the point that you were trying to make, right? So, or you can use a story in the middle. And again, it doesn't matter where you use the story. It doesn't matter where you use the example. It doesn't matter any of those things. The fact is that you're using them to make your point. Now, I made a statement in one of the sessions how the part of a message is to massage the heart of people in your audience. Now, I take speaking in front of people and take speaking in public, I take it pretty serious in this way. That I speak on issues and topics and things that have to do with the emotions of people and obviously the intellect and all those different things. And people may be going through a time in their life, right? So that's where I speak a lot, right? So because I speak in that space, I encourage people to be very sensitive about the people in the space too, because you just don't know where people are. You don't know where they are in their life at the time. You don't know what's going on in their life at the time. You don't know what has happened in their family lives at the time. So when you're speaking on things, you have to be cognizant of the fact that I don't know where everyone is. And this may sound negative to a certain degree. I look at everyone at the edge of the table, ready to fall off. And my job is to try to pull them off the edge of the table and pull them back into the center. So when I'm speaking, I act like everybody I see out there in the audience, they on the edge and they about to fall off and quit and all this. Now, that may not be true, but I try to do all I can to pull people back to the center of the table, so to speak, so that they won't jump off and say, I quit, because I don't know where they are. I don't know if people said, you know what, this is the last day I'm going to try. I don't know that. They look pretty nice. I mean, they dress well, the hair done, makeup done, they looking real good and all these different things, but I don't know mentally they saying this is it for me. Right now, everyone don't take it that serious, and that's okay. That's how I take it, right? So that I'm trying to actually pull people to the center. Now, why did I say that? Because when you're speaking to people and when you're using examples and things like this, this is why I try not to use examples of people in the media and all these different things, because I don't know everything that's going on in those things. And one reason why I use examples, because I want people to remember what I said or remember the point that I said. So when you use a different person, let's say for instance, you use a celebrity and you said, hey, celebrity, this Miss Celebrity, right? And Miss Celebrity might be a celebrity today, and then 6 months from now, a year from now, Miss Celebrity do something that's like way out of pocket, right? Do something really bad in the world, right? So now, every time now they think of Miss Celebrity, they think like, oh, he or she is not that important, right? So the reason why I don't use celebrities, because I don't know what folks gonna do in their future, right? I don't know what's gonna happen, and I want you to remember my message more than anything else. So, for instance, I may use an example like, okay, I use this for a bottle, for instance. Hey, you know what? If you get you some water in a bottle, carrying it around, will make sure that you will never be thirsty, right? And that's how it is when you get information from a book. You carry a book of information around, you won't be thirsty because you'll always have knowledge. Now, I use a bottle of water. You may take this around. Every time you see a bottle of water, you think, yeah, man, I won't be thirsty. You take it around, you quench my thirst like a book. It quench my thirst, my knowledge thirst, right? Now, I didn't use anybody. I just used the water. Now, why did I use a bottle of water as that example? Because then every time you see a bottle of water, you think, hey, man, quench my thirst. I get some knowledge to quench my knowledge thirst. So I put those together somewhat like a metaphor, somewhat in that nature. Well, that's how I try to use my examples, how I try to use my stories, so that when you do that again in life, because remember, the message is bigger than the messenger, right? The message can do more things for the person than me. The message can go a longer time with the person than me. I can leave the planet today, but the message can still stay with the person for the next 20, 30 years. And if I make the message simple enough, or using the examples that I use, that means a person can leave my presence and they can use that example with their son, daughter, husband, wife, mother, father, sister, brother, whoever, best friend, because they can say, girl, guess what? It's like water, right? You got a bottle of water, you always be able to quench your thirst. It's like knowledge. You get you a book, you always be able to quench your knowledge thirst. They can use my same example with their friends. And guess what? That's what I want them to do. They may forget me, which is okay. But as long as they remember the example or the metaphor, the parable, the story, the visual aid, if they remember all that and they take that with them, I'm happy with that. Because the purpose of me speaking is to give you a message that's bigger than me, the messenger. And hopefully you'll carry that out in times in your life and you can share with other people. I don't want to make it all about me because I know it's not all about me. I know it's all about the message. So when you use these examples and things of that nature, I use words a lot, right? I may break down a word and say, hey, the word means this, I mean that. Now, you may not do that. That's okay. You don't have to do that. That's my style. That's part of my stage presence, right? That's part of what I do when I do what I do. So part of my stage presence is part of my personality, part of me being myself. That's the same thing with you. Be yourself while you're up there. Now, here's something that could be based on who your audience, what you have on, what you wearing, right? Now, some people may say you overdress. Some people may say you underdress, right? I don't want you to get too caught up in that. Obviously, if you're talking about how to earn $1 million and you look like you just woke up, I may not take you as serious, right? I'm not saying you got to have your tuxedo on. I'm not saying that. But you look like, man, all your shirt wrinkled and pants wrinkled, your hair not combed. Talk about, yeah, you earned $1 million today. Like, man, hey, did you miss a bathroom mirror or something? What happened? You know what I'm saying? Because did you miss not seeing that wrinkled shirt you got on? You need an iron. So you want to make sure that if you're presenting your stuff, I think, especially if you're doing things in business, you need to be presentable for business, right? Because I know this may not sound right, but people are looking at you, right? And sometimes the way they see you is the way they treat you and the way they perceive you, right? Now, again, I'm not saying you're trying to look like something that you're not, but what I am saying is that people look at you. I know they say, well, God look at the heart. Yeah, God does look at the heart, but people look at you, right? Then they look at your heart later, right? They say, man, this person, wait a minute. Wow, whoa, wait a minute. So you want to make sure that you look presentable, but wear something when you out speaking in public, wear things that you're comfortable in. What you're comfortable in. If you're not comfortable in certain things, here's my thing. You probably don't want to wear it, right? But wear things that you're comfortable in, but it's also presentable too, right? And presentable just means you're comfortable and that is something that fits what you're trying to do. Like I wear suits occasionally, right? So I wouldn't go to we're gonna go talk to the building engineers on how to actually build this building. I'm out there in a suit. Now I'm gonna come with some jeans like everybody else, and that's what we're gonna speak about, right? So you want to make sure what you have on can fit the audience that you're speaking to. Hopefully that makes sense to you. And if you do that, then you'll feel more comfortable with what you have on. Now, if you don't wear certain things, again, don't try to wear them there, right? Or sometimes we have different outfits that fit different stuff, right? My Saturday night outfit might not fit your Tuesday morning board meeting. You know what I'm saying? So I might not want to bring my Saturday night outfit to the Tuesday morning board meeting because it might not fit, right? So you have to be cognizant of that because people trust what people say, right? And when you're the speaker, somebody in there in that audience is going to take you literally, right? They're going to like everything, all 10 steps you said, they're going to try all 10 steps, right? Now, it may not be everybody in the audience, but these two people in the audience, they're going to try all 10 like today, right? Right when they walk out of there. It's almost like giving a recipe to bake a cake. These couple of these people, they're going to walk right out the event and go right to the store and buy all the ingredients. Go right home and start making the cake. That's not everybody, but somebody's going to take you literally. So you must understand that happens. So let's go with some speaking tools that you need. And you might want to write these down too. Some speaking tools that I use and that you can use too, and all speakers use it, I'm sure. One thing is a dictionary. That's a speaking tool. Now, the reason why you want to use a dictionary, because a dictionary, I know we say it tells you what the word means. And technically, it tells you how the word is used in the society. That's why you can have 5, 10, 15 different quote unquote meanings to one word, right? Because it can be used like this. It can be used like that. It can be used this way if you put a pronoun in front of it, right? So there's so many different ways it can be used. And so that's one reason why it's a good tool to have. Because I like to find the essence of words and where they came from. Now, you don't have to do this. So I'm looking at a dictionary and looking at things a little bit differently. I'm not really trying to find out how the word is used as much as I'm trying to find the essence of what the word is. Because in the English language, even though it's a large language, in the English language, you have a lot of combo words, two words in one, 3 words making one. So you can have a word like, here's what, let me see, treat, T-R-E-A-T, right? And a treat, somebody say, hey, what's a treat? Oh, a treat is candy. A treat is something good, right? But then you can have retreat and it'd be like, well, okay, that candy again, right? Well, retreat is where we go off somewhere and we learn something, right? So it can mean something different. So in the English language, even though it's a large language, we have a lot of combination words going on. So because we have a lot of combination words, these words can actually have dual meanings, so to speak, or have the essence of the word can mean 2 different things, and they might have to be combined together. So now you can kind of make your point, an example, a metaphor, a parable. You can make more points because of the fact of the words and what they mean. So that's what a dictionary can help you do as well. Another thing is a thesaurus. I stated how you have to say things in a different way and say them different ways. And sometimes a thesaurus will help you use different words so that you can say them differently and say, the same thing. You said the same thing, you just use 2 different words to say it. So a thesaurus is good to use as a tool as well. Now, again, you want to be true to yourself, right? If you just learned the word 5 minutes ago, you might not try to say that word right now. Get some practice with it in your regular life. You understand what I'm saying? Right before you start going out there, well, that word, wait, hold up, wait, and then you're messing it all up. So, get some practice with the word in your regular life before you try to use it and everything somewhere else. Something else you can use a speaking tool is use a recorder, right? You got all this technology, you got recording devices. You might want to hear how you sound when you speak, right? I speak relatively fast, and I know that. I try to slow down when I can. And when you're in front of people, sometimes people can give you a lot of energy, right? Because they're there with anticipation, especially if they know you coming. They have some idea who you are. Then, they like almost sitting on the edge of their chair like, yeah, bring it. So they kind of get you all kind of pumped up and have me talk even faster. But, you want to actually record yourself when you're speaking about different things. When you want to, if there's a story you want to tell, if you haven't told it in public before or something of that nature, you might want to actually record yourself telling the story because you might find out the story is too long, right? And it might be too long for what you have going on, right? Something else you want to use, you want to actually probably get involved with some type of speaking associations. There's a lot of them. I don't promote them personally on the show, even though there's a lot of good ones out there. And so you're going to actually want to probably get involved with those so you can practice speaking. And obviously, one of the things you want to do, you want to practice, right? You want to practice in front of people. And I know everyone think that they want their company or their product and everything to be, to blow up. But if you can't talk in front of 5, you're going to hurt yourself. You're going to be scared to death trying to talk in front of 5,000, right? So you want to actually get in front of people, regardless if the number is 2, 3, 4, 5, 55, 5,500, 55,000, whatever the numbers are. You want to get out there and practice to speak in front of people, right? But again, you want to speak on things that you know. So you need to find, especially if you have a business, it's easier to talk, get yourself out there and speak in front of people if you have a business or a product. Why? Because you have a business and a product, right? So it's easier to do that because you have this service, you have this product, you have these different things. So that's something easy for you to do because you can say, hey, I would like to come to your chamber of commerce. I'd like to come to your group, your neighborhood, your church, whatever it may be, so I can speak about my product on this, right? And a lot of times these people are looking for people to speak about a certain products or certain things they have going on. So that door is somewhat open for you. So that's something that you do, that you practice on it, right? And you may have to, in one of my earlier times when I was speaking, I would do the same topic, so to speak, at different places. Now, they didn't know that I said this for the 15th time this week, right? But I was practicing getting that better, getting the reactions. I'm improving it each time because I may use this story and people start frowning up. I said, oh, okay, don't use that story again, right? Or maybe I need to tweak that story some because people start laughing. And sometimes I may say a story, people laughing so hard and everything. And I'm like, hey, I didn't tell that story for y'all to laugh like that, right? Because I need to keep going on to give you my message, right? My point. So I might have to actually not use that story in the middle anymore. I might use that story at the end. So because I was practicing on what I was doing, that helped me do it better. And the same thing will happen with you. If you have certain things that you have a product on or service on, you need to probably stand in front of people and talk about that insurance policy, right? It may be 2 people, maybe 22 people. I don't know. But you have to get yourself out there and about so you can be more effective at speaking in front of people. Again, there are a lot of different groups around the country that you can associate with. You can just kind of go to the internet and hit speakers groups. And I'm sure you can find a lot of places close to your house, close to your neighborhood or whatever that you can be a part of to learn how to speak better and learn how to practice and everything on that, right? So, my time is running short. So let me go ahead and promote this guy one more time here before I close out for those who probably didn't hear it at the beginning of the show. And again, if you want me to promote your business on the show, you can definitely get in contact with me at fullerpurposemedia@gmail.com. So I'm promoting Mr. Emmett Farmer. Are you 65 and older or know someone who is in need of Medicare assistance? Mr. Emmett Farmer is a licensed life and health insurance producer and an independent insurance broker. He can be reached at 773-908-9425 or efarmer2, that's number 2, efarmer2 at ameritech.net. Mr. Emmett Farmer specializes in Medicare plans for seniors 65 and older. Also, if you are disabled and have Medicare, he can help you as well. He is licensed in the state of Illinois, Texas, Kentucky, and Indiana. He's also been in the process of being licensed in many other states also. If you are 65 and older, or if you will become 65 within the next 6 to 12 months, contact Mr. Emmett Farmer to learn more about your available options that he can help you with. Again, for more information, contact Mr. Emmett Farmer at 773-908-9425. That's 773-908-9425 or efarmer2, EFARMER, the number 2, efarmer2 at ameritech.net. Again, you will get a free consultation by mentioning that you have heard about Mr. Emmett Farmer and his business here on the Great Business Skills Show on IntellectualRadio.com and iHeart Station, here with your host, Dr. Anthony L. Gantt, on the show. So let's do a recap before we close it out. So we talked about how you have to be yourself, how when you're there to give a message. You're not there to waste people's time. People are giving you something that you can never return to them again, which is the time they gave you to listen to you. If they gave you an hour to speak to them, 30 minutes and everything, you can never give them that 30 minutes back. So you have to get them some information or get them something that they can say at the end, it was worth my time. So you don't want to waste the time of the people. right? Also, you have to realize that you are a delivery person. The message is always bigger than the messenger. You are there to deliver a message to the people in the audience, right? So you giving your message to them, or delivering a message to them that will help them get out of a mess that they're in. We also talked about how you have to persuade people, right? You're there to persuade people, not try to convince people, but you're there to inform people. That's one eye. You're there to inspire people. That's one eye. And you're there to invite people. That's another eye. You inform them about how to get out of a mess. You inspire them to get out of a mess. And you invite them to take the steps or do what you actually suggested so they can get out of a mess. We also talked about how you have to realize your content is, you have to all about the content, all about the audience. It's not really about you, right? You're there again to deliver a message. You're there to make a main point. You want to talk on what you know what you're talking about. You are more than competent to talk on what you know, right? Stay where you are, where your competence is, so you can talk on what you know and you can make a positive impact in the lives of the people that hear you. As well as you need to make sure that you are effective while you are speaking in front of people. We also talked about talk on things you like, talk on your interests. If you're not interested in that thing, don't talk on that thing. If you're interested in gardening, talk about gardening. Whatever you're interested in, talk about that. Use your examples, use your stories, use your metaphors, use your parables. Use all those things to make your point. Remember, you got a main point or a central thing. That's the top of the table. And then you got sub points, which are the legs to the table. The sub points hold up the main point. And if you got two main points and you have no sub points, you don't have a table that can stand. So you have to make sure you have a table, and then you have the legs to the table, which are the sub points that you have as well. Then you have to realize that you have to use the tools that you have. You need to make sure that you, again, make sure that the visual aids that you use don't replace you. They aid you. Nothing there to replace you. And if it replaces you, we don't need you, right? But we need you there to deliver the message, right? So it's almost like the delivery person, right? We need the delivery person, but the delivery person need to have a truck to have my package in. You understand what I'm saying? The delivery truck is the aid holding my package, but the delivery person is the person that's giving me my package. Same thing with you. So you want to use those different examples to help you with that. So I've said a lot. I hope you enjoyed the series. I do appreciate you taking the time to be here with me. You could have been anywhere else and been doing a whole lot of different things besides looking at me. So I do appreciate it. And keep in mind, before I close, keep in mind that great business people aren't born great. Great business people are made great by having great business skills. And I'll see you next time.